I hope Mazora flies into the blades of a windmill for what she did to Wyll. Though, I must admit, the new look is a little dashing.
So, Wyll did the right thing, and it earned him a set of horns. Let that be a lesson to us all.
The Blade of Frontiers in the guise of a devil. I'd remark on the irony, but I'd hate to waste the breath. Still, it took guts to defy that petty patron of his. The Blade's sting is real.
I can't help feeling Wyll got off lightly. The wrath of the Hells is second only to the wrath of the heavens. Having a devil in our camp will certainly make things interesting. Never a dull day, is there?
And with that, welcome back to Baldur's Gate 3. My name is Pete, and today we complete another episode of this Honor Mode walkthrough with our Dark Urge Halfling Bard, Sylvia Hairyfoot. Last time we left off, after finding a pack of bloated hyenas on the Risen Road, we took care of them swiftly to prevent the birth of dangerous gnolls, some of which were already patrolling the area, including their leader Flint and her pack. We managed to make Flint fight for us to turn the tide, saving Rugan and Ollie, the remains of a Zhentarim trade caravan, who gave us the password to their secret hideout. Back in camp, Wyll's patron Mizora also paid us a visit and punished her warlock for breaking his pact. That's what our companions were commenting on earlier. Now today we continue along the Risen Road. I think it only makes sense to complete this comparatively small area in one go, so with the speedy reply equipped on Sylvia, we can set out. We retrace our steps from the last episode, past the charred hyena and the gnolls we defeated, and head in a western direction back towards the river until we encounter a wagon with some goods to loot. There's not a lot here, only camp supplies of the alcoholic kind, but considering that the game has an achievement for long resting using only alcohol, I think it makes sense to pick it all up. On the back of the wagon there's also a book that we can grab, and that's about it. At this point we can continue heading northwest, pick an autumn crocus growing by the wayside, and loot the contents of a few more crates around some carts as we approach what looks to be a building, perhaps the one that Rugan and Ollie were talking about.
Smoke. Something's burning.
And indeed, as we come across Waukeen's arrest, we discover a place that has definitely seen better days. Not only are there flames everywhere, but also dead bodies. Let's approach to find out what happened.
He of the unsleeping eyes, grant me the might to carry this burden. Grant me the faith to face darkness without fear.
Now, in order to get the most out of this conversation, we want to offer our condolences first, before we ask what happened.
He should never have been here in the first place. I'm the one that talked him into joining the Fist.
And with that, let us now find out what led to all of this carnage.
A massacre. Drow and Goblins slaughtered the lot. Please, just leave me be.
And that's all we can do. Certain classes get the option to pray with her, but unfortunately we have none of them in our party. Speaking of which, I think you've noticed by now that Wyll has replaced Karlach for this episode. Now, let's leave the dead where they are, we can loot them later. Instead, let's ask around and see if we can't help.
I hear shouting.
We'll never put this fire out. You're better off helping anyone trapped inside.
Great God, Helm. Allow us peace in this plane and beyond.
Can't you see the inn is burning? Help, or get out of the way!
Right, looks like our task here is clear.
Keep pushing! Duke Ravengard could be inside. On count of 3. 1, 2.
Ravengard? He's here.
Yes! Now make yourself useful! Push, damn it, push!
Now, Wyll seems to recognize the name, and having him in the party for this unlocks a unique dialogue option. Normally, you would have to pass a skill check to help out here. Wyll, however, does not.
Inside! Hurry! We don't have much time!
Hello? Can you hear me?
We hear you!
Right, so Lae'zel has gained an inspiration and we've entered turn-based mode because this is very much combat of sorts, but our enemy is fire and time. We essentially face two challenges here. First, lots of small fiery patches on the ground where careless party members could take damage and ruin our streak. And second, a raging inferno on the building's upper floor that will kill any survivors unless we act quickly. That is not necessarily made any easier by the game's camera, which unfortunately does not allow you to switch to different floors, so as you can see it is a bit finicky, but eventually we successfully managed to use Wyll's Misty Step to get him one floor higher. Here we can now cast an Eldritch Blast on the broken door. Structures like these always have force damage vulnerability, and with that we have now cleared a path for Councillor Floric, the first of two people we want to rescue inside this building. Then we follow suit with Lae'zel, activating her Githyanki Psionics jump ability, something we technically also could have done before entering turn-based mode. Either way, using that ability, she can jump right up to join Wyll. Again, camera placement is a bit finicky here, but it does work. Then, powered by 2 bonus actions and 1 action, all spent on dashing, we can get Astarion moving. Crucially though, not too far.
That door's radiating heat. Time for caution, I think.
Indeed, when engaging the doors over on this side in a second, we want to keep a healthy distance. For the rest of this turn, however, we can't do much more but close the gap with Sylvia, keep Shovel where she is, and then end our turn.
Come! I'm afraid proper thanks must wait.
Right, turn 1 done, Councillor Floric freed, and we are rewarded with this brief conversation. We'll get to talk more once the situation has been diffused entirely. However, to that end, we should also take care of the other person still trapped in the fire, even at the cost of some collateral damage. The heat bursting out of the room causes a small explosion, and that is why we kept our party members far away from it. Now we have a gap though for Lae'zel to jump through, allowing her to reach Benryn lying on the ground here.
Fire! Hurry! Get this thing off me!
The inspiration earlier and the strength check here are the 2 reasons why Lae'zel is perfect for this mission. She's also still wearing the silver pendant, allowing her to guide herself, and that makes the DC of 10 here pretty easy to beat.
Almost.
Thank you. Now, how the hell do we get out of here?
Now, there is no approval to be gained either way, but we do want to have him follow us, which actually makes him a temporary companion.
Right. I'll try to keep up.
Now here's the issue. Despite being back up on his feet in the cutscene, Benryn remains prone after this conversation, and since Lae'zel has just spent her action on guidance, we need somebody else to use the help action. Good thing Astarion can dash using only his bonus action. And there we go, Benryn is up and ready to move. We have completed 2 rescues in the span of just 2 turns. Unfortunately, as you may have noticed, there is no sign of Duke Ravengard anywhere, so we are left with nothing else to do but to regroup and end our turn. We are now awarded the experience points for rescuing Benryn, who, alongside our party, we do want to maneuver out of here. In order to do that, another Eldritch Blast is needed to destroy 1 more broken door. You can already see the flames raging in the room adjacent, and they will spread over into this one very quickly. With a firebolt from Astarion, we then clear the path into the next building. That one is charred and smoking too, but compared to the room we are currently in, a relatively safe place. As we then move Benryn out of the room he was trapped in, he is removed from our party again, and that's our cue to exit turn-based mode.
Slaughtered everyone. Mary. Oh, Mary. No.
Wyll earns an inspiration. Benryn, however, is not quite so happy. Let's speak to him again.
Miri. No. Gods, no, no, no. You should have stayed. You should have been with me.
So, Benryn discovers what we can assume to be his wife dead on the floor, and it sounds like the two of them got separated before the fire.
I was in our room. We had a fight. If I just kept my mouth shut about that bloody dowry, she'd still be here.
Now, we do want to cheer him up in just a second, but first of all, let's ask about that dowry. Doing so is important if we want to complete this small side quest.
It's for a sister's wedding. I made a stupid joke about keeping it. We argued about it for hours. Then she took the dowry and left. She said I'd never see her again. She was right.
Well, and because it does sound like he's blaming himself here, let's go with dialogue option number 1, even though I suppose it won't cheer him up all that much.
I'm sorry, Miri. I'm so sorry.
Please, just go. I need a moment with her.
Well, unfortunately, so do we, to talk to Miri using our Speak with Dead spell.
You're a medium? You're gonna speak to her? Could you ask her something for me?
And of course, we will agree. I think we can spare one of our 5 questions.
The dowry. She'd know where it is.
And that does indeed sound like a smart thing to ask.
Dowry for sister in barn.
The barn? She must mean one of the empty buildings behind the inn. I trust you to get it for me. I can't leave her.
The corpse regards you lifelessly.
Right, so 1 question used, we only get 3 more to get us started here. And as always, we'll begin with proper introductions.
Mirineth, farmer.
Up next then, we want to ask why they were at the inn, even though Benryn could probably answer that too.
From Eltergard. Traveling. Sister's wedding.
And finally, let's find out how she died, although the answer to that seems rather obvious too.
Finding husband Benryn inside. Door locked. Trapped. Fire.
Now, if you stumble upon her first, you could now ask her where Benryn is. Now that we have already found him, though, her answer would not make much sense, so let us leave her and her mourning husband be. Apart from a bedroll, a bottle of Ithbank, and a book we already have, there is nothing of value on this floor. And since the path back through the house is a complete inferno at this point, let's walk down the stairs and loot the bodies here. A few valuables can be found on the charred corpses and the dead goblin. There is also a dead mercenary by the exit, who we do not want to loot, as that would be considered theft, but the goblins are fair game. We'll talk to the one here in just a second, but first let's approach the mercenaries and Councillor Floric.
Councillor Floric, are you all right?
Wyll, by the main God, what's become of you?
A story best left for calmer days. Now breathe deeply. Are you in pain?
Scorched throat. A few hairs singed off. Nothing a bit of time and fresh air can't cure. Gauntlet, a new duty calls. Drow have taken Grand Duke Oskar Ravengard westward, if my eyes and ears can be believed. Report to the Manip and send for reinforcements. We must find the Duke.
On your command, Councillor.
No, it can't be. You mean they've taken my...
Yes, Wyll. The Drow have your father.
Alright, another surprise from one of our party members, another secret kept from us until now. Seems like Wyll is of noble blood.
The circumstance of my birth is no matter of pride for neither me nor my father. But pride is no reason to refuse help to my own flesh and blood. How can we help?
Rescue Ravengard from his Drow captors. Baldur's Gate needs him now more than ever.
Trust us to see it through, Counselor.
Now, we get several options on how to proceed here, but to get the most out of the conversation, their order is somewhat important, so let's begin by asking why we are tasked with this. After all, they are the mercenaries.
Isn't it clear? You travel with the Blade of Frontiers. Who might I trust if not a legend? Who might rise to the moment if not Ravengard's own son?
On to the person of Duke Ravengard himself, then. We could speak judgment here with our Baldurian background, but let's have her tell us about the man instead.
The invisible force holding Baldur's Gate together. Without him, the city's collapse is certain. I fear that may have been the intention of those who abducted him.
At this point, we now want to reveal that it is extremely likely that Ravengard was taken to the Moonrise Towers, as that seems to be the cult's base of operations.
Moonrise Towers? Along the old road? That place is cursed. Few could survive there, unless darker forces are at work. This was no random attack. The Grand Duke was their target.
Finally, we will promise to search for the Duke for a massive 10-point approval gain with Wyll.
Thank you. When the Grand Duke returns to the city, he'll hail his only son, a hero.
Approach the towers with care. The land itself has been swallowed in shadow. I will seek reinforcements and join you when I can.
Remember, Wyll, courage is found in the battle against fear, not in the defeat of it.
So Father said. I won't soon forget.
Fist to work.
Right, for helping out here, we are offered one of 3 weapons as a reward. They all grant lightning charges when dealing damage with them. The first is a trident, theoretically useful as a throwing weapon for Karlach, but unfortunately the lightning charges won't trigger in that case. So we move on to the Jolt Shooter longbow, good but not quite able to replace 2 hand crossbows for Sylvia. So that is why we're opting for the Spell Sparkler, a staff that grants lightning charges upon damage with a spell or cantrip. Magic Missile is very good in combination with this, but overall I would once again recommend not overthinking the whole lightning charges thing. Centering a build around it is certainly an extremely niche endeavor. Now, unsurprisingly, Wyll also wishes to speak to us at this point, so let's indulge our nobleman.
Shit. You can put distance between you and yesterday, but you'll never leave it fully behind. Father's words. Hard to argue with them. Floric spoke true. I'm a Grand Duke's son.
Not just a Grand Duke. Ravengard has more power and influence than anyone.
Once again, plenty of dialogue choices here, but we can only ask one before the conversation proceeds to the next stage. And to gain approval, we want either the first or the second. Let's go with the latter and ask Wyll if he's worried about his father.
More than worried, in truth. What makes a Duke of Baldur's Gate so interesting to the Drow? Even the houses of Menzo Baranzan would have little use for my father. No, this is no Drow plot. These absolute nutters, these true souls are behind his abduction. His absence alone will sow chaos in the city. If they were to infect him, he could lead Baldur's Gate to ruin. All the more reason to find him. The Absolute has seized not just my father, but the future of the Sword Coast.
Now, the topic of keeping secrets has been broached with several party members before, including Wyll himself. Let us once again remind him that it doesn't really help build trust.
I know, and you're right. My story is one of 2 men. The Blade of Frontiers, a man hunting the fiends who prey on the weak and claw at the coast. And Wyll Ravengard, a memory of a memory, a man who belongs to the past. I wanted you to know the Blade, not the shadow he left behind.
At this point, it looks like the conversation is over, but we do have other topics to talk about.
I'm all for it.
Let's ask Wyll what life as the Grand Duke's son was like.
Not so enchanting as you'd think. The Portiers, the Caldwells, they were the blue bloods hosting the fancy balls and drinking from gold goblets. Father's the son of a blacksmith, born with barely a coin in the coffers. He made a name for himself among the Flaming Fist, Brave as Baldur and stubborn as a deep rothay. Daring, outspoken, but hardly posh. I spent more time dueling with father than I did rubbing elbows with lords. Not to say I didn't develop a taste for good wine and the talent for courtly dance.
And as tempting as it may be to comment on the dance aspect, we want to gain one last point of approval, and we'll get it with a toast to good wine.
Hear, hear. Though, truth be told, I'd sooner down a week-old hooch at a ramshackle inn. Better company, and a better buzz.
Now we can leave the conversation, as we do want Wyll to remain in the party. His approval, by the way, has shot up to an exceptional 88, the highest among our companions, even surpassing Shadowheart. At this point, a quick looting tour is in order. We pick the corpse of a goblin, Lae'zel pockets a fire wine barrel and sends it to camp, and we take note of the fact that all that is left of the mercenaries is the praying recruit Ephron, who's looking the other way, allowing us to loot their fallen companion near the door here, and afterwards speak to the dead goblin.
The corpse regards you lifelessly.
Plenty of questions to ask, as you can see. For a change, we get straight to business. Why the inn?
Raiding, burning, killing.
And let's see if our hunch from earlier was correct. Where was Ravengard taken?
Take prisoners to Moonrise.
Now that's the first half of the answer. Let's also find out why they were after him specifically.
Absolute wants him.
Right, that confirms Wyll's theory from earlier, but maybe Ravengard wasn't the only captive.
Slaves. Good. Raid.
And finally, let's ask how the goblin died. The other two options here would not yield much in comparison.
Fell. Dagger. Neck. Stupid.
The spell's power wanes. You can ask no more questions.
So, on to the next then. A dead drow may have more answers.
Excellent armor. Strange place to find it.
Great guard helm.
The corpse regards you lifelessly.
Since we learned most of the important stuff from the goblin already, we have time for some pleasantries to get us started. Including the question of origin.
From Sharth. Before the Absolute.
And the question of occupation.
Male.
Interesting answer, leaving us only with two more. First, the cause of death.
Archer. Roof. Should have seen.
And finally, a question about the raid as a whole. The drows seem more like leaders in their roles. Perhaps we can get an assessment here.
The corpse remains silent. It does not know. The spell's power wanes. You can ask no more questions.
Alright, nothing that we didn't already know. Let's move on then. There are a few more bodies to loot near the entrance to the courtyard, and they all have decent bits of valuables on them. We also want to take a quick detour to the east, through the gate and towards a suspicious rock here.
What's that?
Removing it reveals a hidden stash with plenty of goods, and a letter picturing a winged serpent and the request to restock after taking anything. Back we go then. There are more bodies to loot near the eastern building, and we can also speak to the dead mercenary over here.
The corpse regards you lifelessly.
Once again, not a lot of questions to begin with, so we can learn who we're talking to.
Gauntlet. Marilla. Flaming Fist.
And where they are from.
Baldur's Gate.
No surprises there. Let's see if we can learn a bit more about what happened to the Duke.
The corpse remains silent. She doesn't know.
Well, maybe a bit too much to ask. How about any survivors then?
Dead or dying.
Seems like the ones we found are all there are, so we can take our time to thoroughly keep looting. Destroying the wine barrel with Wyll's Eldritch Blast allows us to get into the building. I recommend toggling group mode off for this because of the fire on the ground, but there isn't too much here, just 2 bodies, one charred beyond recognition, the other belonging to a dead mercenary carrying another letter, likely from their partner. While looting the crates in the corner for supplies, Sylvia spots a burrow hole outside. Party members who can shapeshift into small animals, for example, can use this to get into the building, but it is not really necessary, as you just saw. In the southeastern corner, 3 barrels can be looted for sausages, properly smoked at this point, I suppose, and while there is an upstairs area too, and a locked door as well, we will leave both be for now, and instead have Sylvia loop around the building, once again by herself. A few more bodies can be found near the stone archway here, while a note about stolen property is found around the back. Seems like the statue of the beloved ranger was stolen from the marketplace in Baldur's Gate, and who knows, maybe that is something that we can help with should we ever make it to the city ourselves. After regrouping with our party, we can now clear the path westwards. We could probably jump this, but throwing a few water bottles is a more permanent solution, and we will find plenty more on our travels going forward. 2 bodies can be looted here. The one further down holds a sweet key that we want to keep in mind before we explore the contents of the barrels on the side of the barn here. The first bottles of water are found just as Wyll spots a dig site.
What's that?
The treasure inside contains more water and some gold too. Then we step into the barn, always with that dowry in the back of our heads, and look at what's hidden inside the haystack here.
Looks like there's a chest buried in that hay.
With the contents of the chest in hand, we can also grab the 2 water barrels here. Those could be useful to extinguish any more fires we come across, before we then return to Benryn to report our findings. Of course, handing over the dowry is the kind thing to do, although it does not earn us any approval changes.
I know this doesn't change anything, but it helps. Thank you. I need some time alone with her to say goodbye.
With that, the quest is now completed, and while we could now carefully navigate the burning building for more loot, we will wait a little until the flames have died down, and instead approach another barn with a dead ox in front of it, a dead goblin a few steps further down.
Monsters everywhere. Kill.
Our Speak with Animals spell allows us to calm the ox down with a persuasion check. A DC of 5 is child's play for Sylvia.
No, you're not. They were small like you, but uglier. I was ready to run you through. My mistake, friend.
We can ask a few questions now. Let's begin with a report of what happened.
An attack. Monsters. Little ones and taller ones. They took the shiny one. He killed many.
And the dead goblin outside, we can assume that was his work, yes?
Yes. It was screaming, waving around its metal. I made him stop screaming.
Finally, let's ask about the dead ox outside.
Him? He was the biggest. Now I'm the biggest.
And then we can leave to approach the one building we haven't been to yet.
This is the spot Rugan marked. Doesn't look like much.
Indeed, seems like we found the Zhentarim Hideout. Let's head inside.
You spot a man crouching between the shelves, just as he spots you.
Bugger!
Now, we could try to pass the skill checks here, but why take the small risk of failure when we already know the passphrase, so let us recite that instead.
Oh, hell, dwarves! I thought you were flaming fist.
Well, down you go then. They'll be on us soon, so if you're looking to trade, you'd best be quick. Entrance is hidden behind the wardrobe. Here's the key.
Right, we are handed a key and avoid combat. A good thing considering the flame in his hand and the fire wine barrels next to the entrance here, which we will of course all take and send to camp. Who knows when they might come in handy. If you want to be really thorough, and you know that I am, you can also loot all the crates, shelves, vases and barrels in this building, but apart from some clutter, you're not going to find anything of value, and Salazar also does not have anything useful to say after the initial conversation, so you might as well also head straight down through the hatch over here. The same principle then applies to the next area we now find ourselves in. It is clearly being used for storage, but the goods we can find are all but valuable. There are a handful of camp supplies in the barrels and crates near the ladder though, so those might be worth picking up. There is also a small desk over here with more stuff inside the crates next to it, as well as with a book on it that mentions the arms trader Gortash, a name we already heard Karlach speak. Gortash was the man who betrayed her to Zariel, and it seems like he's encroaching on Zhentarim business, and thus worth keeping an eye on. That is about the full extent of interesting things to discover in this basement. Let us now move the wardrobe and pass through into the Zhentarim Hideout. For our convenience, a waypoint is unlocked as we enter. The crates and barrels near the entrance also all contain foodstuff, and plenty of it, so grab what you can before approaching the gates.
That's far enough. What's your business down here? Answer honestly and maybe we'll kill you clean.
Hold on, that's the lass who saved us from the gnolls. Let her in.
You revealed our location. That tongue gets any looser, Rugan, I'll cut it out. Come down then. Seems you're a friend of the family.
Alright, that's why Astarion is in the party. He gets inspired for talking our way in, and that includes simply reciting the passphrase and leaving Rugan alive during the gnoll encounter. Now, the traps on our path here are deactivated, so we don't have to worry about them and can enter safely.
There are traps about.
You don't want to keep Zarys waiting. Believe me.
Despite what he just said, we do have one more thing to take care of first, and let me also quickly stress the absolute importance of not having a torch out in this area, as the floor is covered in oil connecting several smoke powder barrels.
Look, there's no need for this. Free me now, and I'll see that my patron rewards you. I need only tell her it's a gambling debt. It's happened before.
Well, don't you cut a fine figure? Want your portrait done? If you have the gold, my pet artist will make you a most heroical likeness.
Right, a pet artist sounds curious, if nothing else, and it is the dialogue option we want to pursue to complete a small side quest.
Let's say we're his patrons, yeah? Found him wandering the wilds alone. He needs protection. And if his paintings cover our costs, so much the better, eh?
And indeed, that does sound a bit like the artist is not here of his own accord. Well, let's find out more.
Are you looking to buy him? I'm open to offers, mate. Threats? Not so much.
Right, very important to talk to Brem here first to unlock the Bard-specific persuasion check. A DC of 50 needs to be reached with a roll that we have advantage on, and if we succeed, we can free the artist without paying a single gold coin.
What? Kill him and the price of his drawings goes up? Bloody clever, that. Go on then. But don't kill him here. He's going to be a bleater. I know it.
Alright, there we go. An agreement has been reached. Let us now speak to the artist in question.
I can't say I've ever been bought before. How much did I fetch? No, don't tell me. There's nothing so depressing as learning one's true value. Well, you should at least know what you've paid for. I am the Oskar Fevras, at your service.
Now, let's not be an asshole. The guy has likely gone through enough trouble, so we can at least introduce ourselves properly.
A genuine pleasure. I'm in your debt, as is my patron. My betrothed, I should say. Assuming Lady Janeth still wishes to marry me after our little, falling out.
You recall a recent scandal. A patriarch of Baldur's Gate who wished to marry a commoner.
Now, succeeding the history check here is not really all that important, but it allows us to comment on the situation with another bard option that we will of course select.
Quite. It seems we are destined to doomed romances, are we not?
She offered me a future. And so, in a fit of madness, I told her of my past. Of the woman I'd loved before she found me. Love still, in truth. She was less than pleased. I made a timely retreat into the countryside. To paint and clear my head. To choose, I suppose.
And once more, let us find out all we can about this tale. Don't worry, the question of payment will be brought up on its own in just a moment.
Oh, absolutely none. Fame and wealth suit me very well, no doubt. And yet, I think of that first love, and I hesitate. Likely I'm going mad. Regardless, we have more immediate concerns. Your reward once I've returned to the city, for one. Say, I don't suppose you could spare some coin, could you? Ease the discomforts of the road some.
Now, instead of offering payment, Oskar asks for gold from us, and we will decline. It doesn't make a difference, and we have a good use for our coin ourselves. Thank you very much.
No coin? Mightily imprudent of you. I suppose I can endure the walk sober. Suffering has become an old friend, after all. Until Baldur's Gate, then.
Right, crucially, the quest does not end here, so we're hoping to see him again in Baldur's Gate. For now, let's make our way up towards Zarys.
You seem a nice soul. I'm glad we didn't have to kill you.
And yes, we want to stay on the Zhentarim's good side for now. They are pretty capable in combat, and so we will leave their inventory in peace, at least until we've spoken to Ollie.
Good to see you. Killed any more beasts out there?
Rugan.
That drink I promised will have to wait. We're moving out. The elf song's my local. Look me up if you're in the city.
And finally, Zarys.
I owe you one for saving my people. The Zhentarim look out for their own. Even if it's Rugan. That's worth some coin. And my thanks. Our trader can show you some of our more exotic items now. But don't delay. This place is likely to be rubble soon.
Only one question we can ask here. What's the plan? It sounds like the hideout won't be much longer.
Someone kidnapped a duke. Right on our bloody doorstep. The Flaming Fist will need someone to blame. I don't plan on it being us.
Right, sounds reasonable for the head of a not quite so reputable organization. Either way, we are rewarded with Herald, a rare heavy crossbow we only get for saving Rugan and Ollie and for not stealing their cargo. This crossbow has a built-in on-hit bane effect, pretty useful, even if only a handful of companions can effectively use it. At this point, we are also officially on slightly more friendly territory, so we are free to help ourselves to some, but of course not all the goods in the hideout. We begin with some camp supplies and literature over on the small outcropping to the left here. On honor mode in particular, grabbing all of these little bits and pieces is well worth it in my opinion, not only for selling, but also to be able to take the appropriate number of long rests to experience all the camp events that unfold at night. and there are plenty more still to come in Act 1 alone. Then we move on towards and across a bridge.
Nothing to see here. Move along.
Wyll here has nothing to say to us, and the proximity traps on the floor seem concerning too, but we can't set them off at this point. Still, one of many reminders to remain on the Zhentarim's good side.
Had a peach of a shot on you as you came in.
Around and around again. Master gets confused, I think.
The dark smells wrong. Not night dark. Wheaten dark.
Now, a third wolf is sleeping downstairs. Talking to that one reveals something interesting.
Careful. No stone scent. No stone sound. Strange stone here.
Curious, no stone scent from what looks like stone. We better investigate.
That wall's an illusion. Hiding what, I wonder?
And indeed, we can walk right through the wall, and in the small area behind it, find an old elevator. Its winch is locked though, a clear sign that the Zhentarim know of its existence and have put up the illusory wall to hide it. Either way, a DC 10 lock is no match for Astarion. However, as tempting as it may be, we do not want to go down just yet. Doing so would open an entirely new can of worms that I don't think we want to mess with at this point. So instead, let's head back up to the wolves and take note of 2 locked gates nearby, gates that we would really like to open. Unfortunately, doing so would be considered a crime, so let's have Sylvia play a distracting song for people and animals alike while Astarion goes to work. The first iron gate comes with a DC of 15, quickly picked, only to spot trapped chests behind it.
A trap. Someone doesn't like visitors.
Fortunately enough, both traps have a DC of only 10, so anything but a natural 1 is guaranteed to disarm them. Well, speak of the devil, luckily we have a few points of inspiration stored away. Now that's much better. Onto the other chest then, protected by a similar mechanism. And of course, gate and traps are not the only hurdles here. The chests themselves are also locked, although once again with a DC of 15, so nothing Astarion can't crack. We find a rare piece of infernal iron and about 300 gold pieces, a nice haul. Let's see what the other chest holds. Again, success is pretty much guaranteed, especially considering that we're carrying 25 thieves' tools. Each one would allow a retry. This chest then with more gold, gemstones and a silk gland. And for the sake of full completion, we are also going to loot the rest of the room, although apart from a dried sausage and a pork loin, there is nothing here that warrants our attention. So, back out we go, let's close the gate behind us and act all innocent as we approach the second one, this one requiring a DC 20 sleight of hand check, so a bit more difficult, but still a greater than 50% success chance. The chest in this room is then untrapped and unlocked and contains the very rare Abyss Bacchus. These gloves render all summoned creatures resistant to all but psychic damage, albeit with a small chance of driving them mad. Now that may not seem so useful at the moment, but we might get to a point where we are capable of summoning a few creatures that work really well with these gloves. Until then, we want to hold on to them, of course. Also in this chamber, some books and jewelry, a painting that we can steal, and an oil lamp that looks like more than it actually is.
I wonder, is that? No. An ordinary lamp. Pity.
Still, we're going to take it, and then with all the goods in the room safely stored away, we can head back out, close the iron gate, regroup, and return to the front of the cave. This time we are taking a different path that brings us across a lower area. That one is entirely empty though, and only really useful if you're looking for an alternative passage for some reason. For example, if you are trying to avoid the traps. The main thing we are after, meanwhile, is the hidden dirt mound here, the treasure inside well worth picking up. At this point, we then want to speak to Brem again. He is a trader, and we are now friends with his faction.
Something I can help you with?
So let us trade. He has a few extremely interesting items for sale.
Of course. Got some interesting stock for a friend of the family.
Right. Apologies for the slight stuttering here, that sometimes happens when the game runs too long, but as you can see, after a quick off-screen stop at camp, we are once again selling a ton of junk and jewelry to acquire 4 pretty useful things. First, a +1 scale mail, a no-brainer upgrade over the one that Sylvia currently wears, albeit likely not for too long. Second, a pair of gloves that lets us cast Hail of Thorns, an AoE ranger spell, very useful for ranged builds that are not rangers, as well as third, the Gloves of Thievery for Astarion, granting advantage on sleight of hand checks, making him even more capable at picking and disarming anything coming our way. Finally, and this is the big one I think, the Titan String Bow. This is a +1 longbow that may not look like much at first, but adds the wielder's strength modifier to its damage. Since strength is one of the few stats that can rather easily be raised to extremely high levels with elixirs and gear, this bow can potentially deal a ton of damage, especially in the hands of someone who, for example, can shoot it multiple times with one action or gets sneak attack bonuses. Now, there is also one crossbow here, Giant Breaker, that I think is also not too shabby. I am passing on it for the time being, simply because we were just awarded Herald from Zarys, but let me know in the comments if you'd like us to purchase this one as well. With all of that, we have now done everything we can do in the hideout, except of course for slaughtering its inhabitants, but that is not a wise idea in my opinion, so let us return to Waukeen's Rest, where during the time we spent with the Zhentarim and grabbing stuff from camp, the flames have died down for the most part, allowing us to safely loot the place. Now, I'll try to spare you the roughly 15 minutes it took me to completely clear out the building, so I'll just point out the main sources of loot. Starting on the ground floor, the entire western side was once used as a tavern, and thus holds plenty of alcohol, both on the tables and behind the bar, and don't ask me why none of it burned in the fire. Heading over to the building's eastern side, you'll find the kitchen, unsurprisingly chock full of food supplies. Being thorough in here can easily get you enough food for multiple long rests, even on honor mode, so take your time grabbing everything you come across. Then it's time to explore the upstairs again. The room that Astarion initially warned us about is still red hot, but Lae'zel has enough jump distance to avoid the burning embers on the ground. Particular attention should be directed towards the chest here containing 60 gold, and towards what at least once was a chest, its content now spilled on the floor around it, including Hammerraft, a large two-handed maul that grants its wielder a shockwave when landing, dealing a small amount of damage to all creatures around. Now, it's not going to replace the Everburn blade anytime soon, but there might be a few specific situations coming up where this thing could prove useful. Now, inside of the room where we found Benryn, an eyewitness account sits on the table, detailing a member of the Flaming Fist mercenaries questioning someone on the night that the city of Elturel fell into Avernus. It is an interesting read, so feel free to pause for the entire thing, while we now return to the room we found Councillor Floric in, a case file on the table here, detailing the case against a Flynn Silver, who murdered 2 people as part of an unholy ritual to honor the dead 3 gods, Bane, Baal, and Merkel. Of interest is the fact that his defense here actually sounds somewhat familiar, no recollection of, or at least no control over how the murder went down. Sylvia has made at least one similar experience in the past, as you may remember. The rest of the room then only contains a few more bits and bobs, but nothing that's desperately worth grabbing. So let us now use that sweet key we collected earlier to unlock the door here leading out, a book on the table outside with conspiracies and panic about the city of El Turel and its inhabitants, aptly named No Cause for Alarm, while simultaneously achieving quite the opposite. Finally then, we can loot the upper floor of the southeastern building that we were already in once before. Again though, apart from an encyclopedia on eels, there is not much to find here. And so, we retrace our steps until we can exit the still smoking remains of Waukeen's Rest and call it an episode. As you know, I usually try to have combat at least once per video, but today there simply weren't any opportunities. Again, picking a fight with the Zhentarim is not a good idea in my opinion, both for storyline reasons and because it can turn out to be a rather messy encounter. So I hope you can live with a good haul of brand new and powerful items that we will get to test out next time. Until then, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or become a channel member or Patreon supporter. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.